Yeah, so Natalie Mills, I am a 2010 graduate from Auburn's civil engineering program. And so I started in 2006. So 2006 to 2010 were my years that I was on campus.
Right.
And I'm originally from Central Florida. So I was an out-of-state student. I went to Auburn because of its engineering program. I was offered a full ride scholarship, which was amazing, and could not say no to that. And very fortunately have gotten to know my scholarship donor, and we are still in touch to this day. And she made an investment in me, she set up the scholarship so that it would specifically support a young female engineer in the civil engineering department. And so I'm very fortunate to have benefited from her generosity. And after graduation, so graduated May 2010. In June 2010, I started as an entry-level engineer in the geotechnical engineering department at Southern Company Services in Birmingham, Alabama. And I've worked a number of jobs over the last 11 years since then. And I'm now in Alabama Power's external affairs organization. So, which I can take you through all the different roles that I've held, but that might take a little while.
Yeah.
Basically, I transitioned from a field engineer, focusing more on policy. So EPA rolled out all these environmental regulations around coal ash. And so I specialized in the implementation of handling our coal ash ponds at all Southern Company facilities. From there, I transitioned to focusing more on the policy side in our environmental affairs department, focusing more on the Clean Power Plan, which was rolled out under the Obama administration, and supported our DC office as well. And then from there, I moved into a planning role where I did long-term strategic planning. And basically the transition there was, okay, now we've got this Clean Power Plan, now let's figure out how to implement it. And so, but then the Clean Power Plan basically went away. It was stayed by the Supreme Court. So I had to pivot and focus more on natural gas and the future of natural gas.
Right.
How it affects our business as we, as a power generation system, transition from coal resources to more natural gas resources.
Sure.
So did that, and now since then transitioned to Alabama Power External Affairs, which is where I am now, and I work very closely with the Public Service Commission, and I'm kind of that key point of contact for any questions, supporting the staff of the Public Service Commission, and more in a regulatory affairs role.
Sure. Now, that's kind of interesting because when people think of engineering, you think of a lot of math, people sweating over schematics, arguing with guys on shop floors about what'll work and what won't. But I think one of the misunderstood things about the field generally is just how far it spreads across the economy. I mean, even things that businesses or functions that you wouldn't think would require some engineering background do. Like, I mean, as you spoke to, just the planning for EPA compliance and what to do with all these coal ash ponds. The coal ash ponds are a real problem over in the Carolinas as well. And Duke Energy has Duke Energy has
solid plan to address them.
Yeah, I mean, they've had to lay out a lot of money to clean up a lot of legacy coal ash ponds they didn't even own when the ponds were
right.
So, I'm kind of meandering a bit. But it is very diversified. Olivia, I'm curious. Olivia, I'm curious. What did you think you were getting into when you decided, okay, yeah, I'm going to do engineering at Auburn with an eye towards a career? I mean, what were you seeing from the outside coming in?
Well, first of all, I always liked math and science when I was coming in. And I, again, am coming from a high school in Iowa. And so I went to a pretty rural public high school, and I didn't really get a lot of exposure to the engineering world or the engineering industry at all. I liked math and science. My dad was a science teacher. He taught my chemistry class. And so I just kind of figured, why not go into chemical engineering? And so when I was looking at colleges, I just loved Auburn, but went in thinking I was going to go into chemical without really any idea of what any of the engineerings were, what that industry was going to look like. Um, and I think that at first my interest was actually extending more into like the medical field. And so I was hoping to get into like prosthetics eventually. Um, and I came in and I did my first year as a chemical engineering student. And we have a class at Auburn. It's like an orientation course that introduces you to all of the engineerings during your
Okay.
first year, and it's
Okay.
required. And it's literally kind of just like a crash course into every degree that Auburn offers through the engineering program. So you can figure out if you're in the right one. And I saw the chemical engineering job, so I learned more about what to expect out of that industry. But I was also exposed to the engineering jobs for the aerospace industry. And I remember specifically seeing the design program for the F-35 through Lockheed Martin, and I was smitten. So I immediately changed my major to aerospace engineering, which is what I'm graduating with. Um,
Yeah, I would guess spaceships are a lot sexier than polymers and all of that stuff.
Well, that depends on who you ask, because all my friends were still smitten with the chemical engineering jobs.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of what I was, my first entry into the aerospace industry was aircraft design. And I was expecting to do a lot of aircraft design and kind of lean my interest in that direction. But throughout the curriculum at Auburn and my time in like an internship and where I'm going right now, I've shifted more over into like missile and rocket side of things. Um, so I mean, that's what I am seeing from my industry anyway.
So what, one of the big problems that's lagged, I think, for a long time in this area has just been the fact that more women study engineering today, but that it's still pretty much a boys' club. I mean, women don't quite have the numbers in the big lecture halls, and you don't see as many teaching assistants and professors who are women teaching this, or at least historically that's been the case. I mean, is that what you've experienced at Auburn? Has it gotten better? I mean, I'm interested in both your perspectives. We'll start with Olivia and then Natalie. But Olivia, I mean, as far as the gender gap, what was your experience at Auburn?
hmm well, I'm a cupola engineering ambassador, so I get to know a little bit more about all of the engineerings. So I've been in a unique position to be able to see how that affects everybody. And I know from that where we stand right now, it really depends on which engineering major you're going into. It's just how it is. But like chemical engineering, industrial and systems engineering and biosystems, I think that they have a near 50-50 representation of women and men in engineering, at least the last that I knew of. And I think the highest one is in either chemical or biosystems. And Natalie, you may have more exact numbers and can weigh in on that. But so that's what I've been seeing. Of course, when you get more into like the aerospace electrical software, it is a little different. So my numbers are lower than that. And from the beginning, I think I've been like my graduating class right now, I am one in six girls, I think, of about 80 graduates, but that is for fall, summer, and um, spring, like of this
Uh-huh.
entire 2021 year. So it's kind of spread out. So it really depends on which major you're going into. Um, I guess TA wise, I've experienced, I think, pretty equal representation, especially, well, in aerospace, we have this one TA. She is awesome. And she is basically TA'd at least every other one of my classes. She's a
Uh-huh.
genius. And so by that standard, I've had about half and half representation because she's basically a TA in every single one of my classes.
And what's her
Um,
name?
Tarika.
Okay.
I'm not positive on her last name, but
Okay.
Tarika,
That's
she's
fine.
working on her PhD. Yeah.
Okay, so Natalie, you came through here 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Compare and contrast the experience Olivia is describing to what you found here.
Yeah, it actually sounds very similar. And so, like from what I remember, it was never something that fazed me. You know, I kind of went into engineering knowing, like the only reason I went into engineering was because my dad. I knew nothing about it before I even went into it. Like I felt like I was learning about engineering as I was taking classes. It was almost like, oh, that's what a civil engineer does. Like every semester, I was like, oh, we do this too. Like, so, but I went into it because my dad was like, you know, if you go into it, you're a female, you're gonna just soar because there aren't a lot of you, and you're gonna bring a new perspective to this, you know, male dominated industry, and they need your brain, they need your, you know, they need your math and science interest. And so and he's coming from a construction background, and so grandfather was also a civil engineer, and so, you know, just so that's kind of my background where I came from. And so when I got to Auburn, I kind of went into it thinking like, okay, I might be the only girl, but that's okay because um you know, I never lacked for finding a study partner, and I never like I never really felt the boys club thing.
Mhm.
And also I was a cupola engineering ambassador as well, which that's an organization that is kind of, they're the student ambassadors for the College of Engineering.
Mhm.
We offer tours to prospective students. We attend alumni events, and I speak as if I'm still one of them. I guess once a cupola, always a cupola. But but really, like on those organizations like that, it felt like it was 50-50. I mean, I never felt like I was outnumbered. Now, if I really sat in class and looked around, I'd realize there might be 6 females in a lecture hall of 70 people or 80 people, what Livy was saying. But I never let it bother me.
Mhm.
And I just, you know, cut my head down and did the work. And I will say that, so 100 Women Strong, I'm the executive co-chair of 100 Women Strong, and I hadn't brought that up yet, but that is an organization driven by alumni of the College of Engineering, and our mission is to recruit, retain, and reward females of the College of Engineering. And so, you know, one of our goals is to increase that exposure early on so that more students aren't arriving on campus not knowing what engineering is. We want to expose them early so they know what they're getting into. But then once they get there, we want them to feel supported, but also a big part of that is networking. And so if we can introduce them, we have a program that before the freshmen even start classes, we have what's called a freshman welcome event or a new student welcome event, because transfers and grad students are also invited. And that way, we have anywhere from 200 to 300 females who are welcome to campus before they even start classes. And they can look around and say, wow, okay, here are all the other females who are going to be in my class.
Mhm.
They connected early on so that they can establish that, I don't want to say girls club, but
But
they
I
can,
mean, that's
so
what it
that
is,
when they
really.
see
I
each
mean,
other and they walk in and go, okay, there are 10 of us here. Oh, I met you at this event. I met you at this event. Let's all sit together. And so I feel like I'm just kind of rambling, but
not at all, not at all.
so, but I mean, that is, I truly believe that's one of the things that is setting Auburn apart in being proactive in establishing that sense of community, that network that's so important in success of retention of females. Once we get them to campus, let's keep them here and let them be successful. And a big part of their success is not just graduating, but then it's pushing them into the workforce, and then making sure they feel supported in finding a job or a career. But then the other part of it is, if they're interested in grad school, they're making sure that they are pursuing those graduate studies, so that there are down the road more female professors on campus, and that the pool in the graduate schools is bigger as well, because, you know, like you even alluded to, it's not just a student issue. It's, we need more females in professorships. We need, there is a lack of females in who are teaching and leading the classes. Working on it.
Yeah, well, Olivia, just if you could speak to the point about, how did you avail yourself of this networking and mentorship that Natalie's been describing? I mean, I would guess it was probably pretty nice to have.
Sorry, my internet cut out right as you began speaking. Would you mind repeating?
I'm sorry. Just talk a little bit about your experience with the networking and the mentorship that Natalie's been describing.
Yeah, no, I have to agree that that made a huge impact on my own time at Auburn. Just getting in, like she said, that event that happens before anybody even gets to campus was, I think, huge in just making me feel really comfortable. I attended that event and I sat, with a random group of girls at the event. And one of the girls at the table, actually all the girls at the table, ended up becoming my roommates the next year. And I'm still living with one of them 4 years in now. And so, they became my best friends. And during that event, you just start being able to, see and recognize all these other girls. And so even going into your other classes, even if you never speak to them, you're not in the same major or anything, you recognize them and you know them. And getting to be a part of the group, with that mentorship aspect, thinking back on my own time, I think the things that made me feel so comfortable and confident in, achieving my engineering degree, were all those connections even to staff. And so Diane heads up 100 Women Strong, Diane Sherrard. And I have, had the honor of actually working pretty closely with her in her office as a student assistant. And so I feel like there are a lot of really great ways to get involved like that. That looking back, I think I felt like I was a part of something. I had an awesome woman to look up to. I had a great mentorship program to be able to reach out and ask those questions. Like she said, the 100 Women Strong mentorship program, they've changed it a little bit. And so I did it the first year that they did one, and got an excellent mentor. She's awesome. We chatted a few times. And so I get to watch her career and learn from her and talk to her. And then the second go round, I kind of got I got another mentor and she's awesome. She also happens to be one of my scholarship donors, and I've gotten to talk to her. So I think that in building that just really strong network, almost like a nest of women around you, where it's I'm in here and I'm not alone. Even if I'm not in direct contact with everybody all the time, I do have this network already set up around me. So with the 100 Women Strong, I mean, I think that they have done a great job in reaching out and making a space for girls. I mean, and I also wanted to kind of reach back on the boys club thing that Natalie kind of mentioned. I also have not really experienced that too much with Auburn. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think that another big part of that is probably the character of the boys in the club that makes it a boys club. And in my experience, the guys that have been in my major don't really play into the boys club mentality, and I think that has made a huge difference too. Everyone's getting there. But yeah.
Okay, well, and I guess the last question, I guess I'll direct this to you, Natalie, again, because you were here 10 years ago. I mean, was chauvinism a problem? Were general expectations of women engineering students different than they were for the boys when you were here?
Honestly, I never felt that. I never felt that. I felt fully respected by all my professors. And if anything, I almost feel like being one of the few women in the room gave me an edge. It just but it may be because that's how my dad kind of sent me out of the nest.
Right.
They need your different way of thinking and your different background and your diversity. They need your diversity of thought. And so I feel like I always just approached my schoolwork and my work with this thought of, okay, yes, I might be the only female in the room, but so what? And so I feel like all of my professors, I had an amazing experience at Auburn, and truly just, I feel like with any good student, if they are there and willing to learn, it shouldn't matter if they're male, female, the color of their
Oh,
skin.
sure. Mhm.
And I truly feel like all of my professors that I've had, whether they were male or female, they didn't care, because I was there and I was eager and I was ready and willing to learn, and that was respected.
Okay. Ladies, thank you for making time for me this morning. This conversation has been a huge help. It's for a package that probably won't appear in the paper for a couple more weeks. I'm still working on it. So, but your insights are, thanks very much, because some of my assumptions coming into this, you and the others I've talked to have kind of put paid to some of my old assumptions about these things. So it's all good stuff. And hopefully we can use all of it in the paper, and maybe there are one or two girls out there who hadn't been thinking about engineering before, and they'll think about it now after they see the story. So I appreciate
And
both
one more thing I do want to, it's something based on what Livy said, and even what you teed up, like just about how when you think of an engineer, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your engineering discipline is, you are learning how to solve problems. And if you think about the business world of the future, every single business, whether it's an engineering design firm or a power company or even just generic business, you're solving problems. And so what I'm truly passionate about is exposing young girls to the opportunity to learn how to effectively solve problems of the future, and you can use engineering processes and apply it to anything. I mean, I'm a new mom, and I'm applying it to how to get my daughter out the door to daycare. It's
yeah,
little things like that. I just I feel like the conception of what an engineer does or what an engineer is, I know engineers who are doctors, lawyers, all kinds of fields. I mean, it really, generic business, consulting. It truly opens doors for anyone. So, as much as you can paint that picture, hopefully we can expose more people to engineering, because we just need more engineers in general. I mean, yes, we need more women and minorities, but we need, I think, as a country, more engineers to move the country forward.